Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you're new to my channel. Glad to have you here. Either way, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my great horror content, horror movie content that I have on this channel. With that being said, the movie we're going to take a look at today is a movie that is part of my DVD Blue Underground collection. It's a really nice release. It's a movie I think I've seen parts of before because some of it seemed kind of familiar, but overall, I don't think I ever reviewed it on my channel. And that movie is an underrated movie, in my opinion, from 1981. And that movie is Dead and Buried, which again, I have the DVD um, Blue Underground release here, which it's a very nice display here. Couple of discs, special features. Got the chapter card there, but yeah, it's got extras, audio commentary, three different audio commentaries by the director, the co-producer, co-writer, one of the actresses, cinematographer, and then you got Stan Winston's Dead and Buried EFX effects, Robert Englund, an early work of horror, Dan But so it's yeah, very nice. I mean, and I know there's a Blu-ray release for this movie now, but I don't really know that I need to unless somebody down below comments that has the Blu-ray and has seen this movie and could tell me that it's like 100% better as far as quality goes. I didn't think the quality was that bad here, and I really like this. I mean, if this were a standard like snapper case DVD or something, I would definitely upgrade. But I don't think I need to with this particular Blue Underground release here. So, but yeah, Dead and Buried from 1981. As I said, a film that I don't think I've seen all the way through before, but I do remember certain parts, so I must have caught it on something, but never reviewed it. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Dead and Buried is a 1981 American horror film directed by Gary Sherman. The film focuses on a small town whereas a few tourists are murdered, but their corpses begin to reanimate. With a screenplay written by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. So basically, the movie opens with an amateur photographer who arrives in coastal Potter's Bluff to practice his craft. A beautiful woman offers to model for him, but when he accepts her invitation to have sex, a mob of townspeople beat him and set him on fire. So think about the next time a woman or anybody offers to have sex with you, make sure that there's not a group of townspeople with torches and gasoline cans close by. Um, the man survives the attack, but is later killed by the woman posing as a nurse in the hospital. As the townspeople murder more visitors, Sheriff Dan Gillis, assisted by Dobbs, the eccentric local coroner mortician, works hard to discover the motive for the killings. Gillis becomes increasingly disconcerted as a grisly death occurs every day. In each case, the killers photograph the victims as they are murdered. Gillis's investigations are complicated by the bizarre behavior of his wife, Janet. Gillis accidentally hits someone with his squad car following an attack. On the grill of his vehicle, Gillis finds a twitching severed arm on the accident victim, who attacks him and flees with the arm. After the attack, Gillis scrapes some flesh from the vehicle and takes it to the local doctor, who tells him that the tissue sample has been dead for approximately 4 months. So yeah, that's an interesting way to get started. As far as the cast goes, we have a good one here. James Ferrantino is Sheriff Dan Gillis. Melody Anderson is Janet Gillis. Jack Albertson, and I believe his last on-screen role. I know he did a voice for The Fox and the Hound, which I think aired after this. But as far as being an on-screen, in-person performer, this was the last movie because he passed away 6 months after this. Jack Albertson is William G. Dobbs. Nancy Locke is Linda. Lisa Blunt is Lisa. Robert Englund is an early role before Freddie as Harry, and Bill Quinn as Ernie. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 1981 horror movie Dead and Buried. I absolutely love this movie. Not to say that it's perfect; there are a couple of issues with it, but for the most part, this is like a combination of The Fog and Reanimator from 1985. That's kind of the best way I can describe it, even though it's not completely like those two movies, but it has the atmosphere and the setting of The Fog while having the idea of Reanimator. So Hopefully, I'm not giving too much away there, but it's done in its own unique style. So let's go ahead and get into my pros because I have a lot of them for this movie, Dead and Buried. Again, I love the setting. I'm big on coastal towns, small town settings, and horror movies. They just work for me because there's a certain innocence to a small town. I mean, when you think of trouble, you always think of the big metropolises, the big cities throughout the country or even the world. But these small towns, especially, and in this case, a coastal town, with sort of a simple day to day life and simple townspeople, it's just a very effective background for horror movies in general, and specifically for this movie. It sort of has this old town look to it, kind of broken down buildings and people that you can tell haven't really been away from this town. Just overall, the aesthetic has a very good small town feel for it. With fog, it definitely has John Carpenter's The Fog vibes going on as far as the setting goes. So that's the first thing that I really like. That it's one of long standing as far as the setting goes in a horror movie. Very good. The cast and the performances are really good here, led by Jack Albertson and James Ferrantino. I'm a big fan of James Ferrantino. I actually remember him best from Jesus of Nazareth, which came out about 4 years before this, and this is quite a different kind of movie. But I know he was in Dynasty, I believe, and a lot of other things. But I think he's an underrated actor during that time, and rest in peace to him, as well as the great Jack Albertson, who, man, if you know, he went out with a bang. Let's just say that. I mean, rest in peace to him that he passed away 6 months after this movie. But his performance in this movie makes it work, I think, because it's not an overly silly. It's played seriously, although it's also got a bit of humor to it. He's just brilliant. He just plays it brilliant. Jack Albertson was a terrific actor during this time, the 70s and the 80s. I even like him in the Twilight Zone episode that he's in, The Shelter, the Poseidon Adventure, obviously Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Just brilliant, just a brilliant actor. He's also in a lot of TV, Chico and the Man. So yeah, Jack Albertson is at the top of his game here, even though he's on his way out, unfortunately. But those two, I think, are both terrific in their roles, as well as the supporting cast, who plays these townspeople. I think they're very solid for what they have to do here. And I think overall the acting really helps to sell the story and the horror of what's going on in this movie. So yeah, you definitely can't talk about the good things about this movie without talking about the cast and the performances by that cast. Um, the movie has a great overall atmosphere with the use of fog, shadow and light usage at nighttime, camera work, and just the overall color tone, which is very drab and gray in this town, completely works for the movie. Um, Excuse me. Yeah, the colors are very there's not a lot of bright colors from a visual standpoint. It's very drab, very just seaside coastal town. It's like there's overcast all the time. I don't think the sun ever comes out in this movie. Of course, a lot of it takes place at night too, but yeah, they just do a great job with the effects of the fog. As I said, the shadow usage, the camera work. It just works and creates a terrific atmosphere for this movie. And speaking of that, the music and the score helped build up the tension and atmosphere as well in this movie. Really solid and effective. I mean, it's nothing overly unique, but it's a very effective score and really fits for this kind of movie. And it's definitely another, excuse me, I'm dealing with a bit of something. I don't know what yet, but it definitely adds to the atmosphere. That's for sure in this movie. Um, the practical effects are really quite good for the most part, created by legendary Stan Winston. The gore effects and the skeletal effects are used really impressively and very creepy in this movie. They're just I'm not it's not an overly gory movie, although there is definitely kills and there's definitely blood and gore in it. So it's not goreless by any means, but that's not really the focus of the movie, I wouldn't say. But when they do have it, it's very effective. You can tell that somebody that was very good at that, whether it was Tom Savini, Rick Baker, I mean, all those guys from the early '80s all the way throughout the decade. But this was Stan Winston, who might be the most impressive of them all when you look at his resume, frankly. Um, I think the effects definitely work more than they don't. I was engaged in the story throughout the entire runtime. You know, given the terrific opening that this movie has, that whole scene, and as the unfolding mystery that Ferrantino's character is trying to unravel. Effectively paced movie at 94 minutes, never bored, and it wasn't padded. I was very impressed with the pacing of this movie, and I was in it, man. And a lot of the credit goes to that opening scene. The way they open this movie, where you have this photography that's, pulling up to this beach area and starts taking pictures, and all of a sudden, this beautiful woman, played by Lisa Blount, who actually would be in An Officer and a Gentleman a year later. Um, she approaches the guy, asks if he's a professional photographer, basically coaxes him to doing some modeling for him, and then asks him to get it on with her. And as he's about to do that, all of a sudden, all these townspeople come out, and it's not good news for him. That was just a very effective way to set off the movie, to kind of let you know, "Oh, we got something here. What is this going to be all about?" So, yeah, very impressed by the opening of this movie. And like I said, I was in it the whole time. Definitely well paced. The movie genuinely has some incredibly creepy and shocking scenes with the terrific atmosphere, the effects, the camera work. One scene specifically that stands out is you have this family, a couple and a young boy, who come upon the town, and they're in their car. Or wait, are they out of their car? I think they're trying to drive away, and of course the car won't start for a couple minutes, which is very cliche. But you just see these townspeople coming out of the house and start walking towards them, and they're like dark, shadowy silhouettes. Very fog. It's just like John Carpenter's The Fog in a lot of ways. Except those were supposed to be like spirits or ghosts. These are well, they're people. They might be reanimated people, but they're people, in the flesh, so to speak. But that scene was very creepy, very effective. That was probably my favorite like visual of the whole movie, to be honest with you, as they're walking towards this family, as the family's trying to get away. And then also the sequence of a murdered woman who's on the table at the morgue after she's murdered, being stripped down to her skeletal face and rebuilt up again by Jack Albertson's character. That whole sequence was very disturbing, creepy, effective. Yeah, that's one that I won't forget anytime soon. So that's another pro. And then my final pro is the ending of this movie has a very Twilight Zone-esque kind of feel to it. So I'm already going to be on board because I love the Twilight Zone, the best show of all time for my money. The last 10 or 15 minutes or so specifically, I love the ending scene because it was, at the same time, it was kind of funny, it was kind of creepy and thought provoking, which made me think of the Twilight Zone, especially the last line that Jack Albertson has, as well as the effects of what we see on Ferrantino's hands. I just loved it. I thought this movie is started very well and it's ended very well, but it's also very good all the way through. So yeah, it's this is a highly recommended movie for me, guys. Those are my pros for Dead and Buried. As far as cons go, I don't have a lot. The movie tries to have a couple of twists towards the end, having to do with characters. That were kind of obvious to me, specifically the first one having to do with a specific character that Ferrantino knows pretty well. It was basically telestrated throughout the movie, though. I don't know why they thought we'd be surprised. So not very effective in that regard. And then the other twist having to do with another character in the movie at the very end. Some people might say that one worked a little better, but I wasn't. Once you know the first twist, I think that twist is pretty obvious, especially the way they film it. That's as much as I'll say about it without giving anything away. So yeah, not very effective on the twist they try to go for. Again, it might have been more effective for the time. I always have to say that with Twilight Zone episodes too, when you can watch them now and you say, "Well, I saw that coming." Yeah, but people might not have back in 1960, or in this case, 1981. So you kind of have to put yourself in people's shoes at the time as well. Um, but yeah, the twist didn't work for me. I have to talk about the couple with the young boy, the family, if you will, that comes upon the town. The stupidity of this couple, the man and the woman. I'm not gonna lump the young boy in because he's just being led around by him. Unfortunately for him, was really lame, insulting, and cliche. They once again you stumble upon this dark, decrepit house that it doesn't look like anybody's lived in. Well, let's go in with our young 6 year old, probably younger than that, 4 year old boy, even though there's no light or anything. Let's go down in the basement and I'll start lighting some matches and we'll see if we can find a phone. Yeah, because that's a thing. It's just that's just horror movie cliche. There, it might be a little bit nitpicky, but that couple really bothered me. Both the man and the woman, on the ideas that they had, or the lame ideas that they had. So yeah, that bugged me. A couple of the effects don't age as well. I talked about I would say 80% of the effects by Stan Winston are still very good when you watch them now. But there's one having to do with acid up the nostrils of a character that you could tell that looked pretty bad. It was very outdated. A couple of questions I'm left with that aren't really answered are why are they a certain way while others who are quote unquote in on it are different, or they act a different way. That's never really explained, and I kind of would have I'd liked a little bit more explanation on that. Unless I missed something, you can comment down below if I did. And then, how does one character? I'm not going to mention who it is because it'll give it away. But how does one character never show any deterioration until the very end, after the twists are revealed? I just find that kind of funny. Throughout the whole movie, there isn't like a this character doesn't like look at their hand or their back, and there's not like a little scratch or anything. I don't know. There's definitely some plot conveniences and character contrivances in the movie, but again, I'm definitely not going to beat the movie up too much for that. This is an oh man, this is getting bad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm glad I'm wrapping this up. 8.5 out of 10 for Dead and Buried. I absolutely love this movie. Um, it needs to be talked about more. It's one of the great early 80s movie, in my opinion, with the combination of effects and atmosphere and the cast and the performances and the Twilight Zone-esque nature of it. I love Dead and Buried. And this is, like I said, I almost feel like I should be giving it a higher score, but I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10 because of those couple cons I mentioned. But, and that's for a first time watch. So 8.5 out of 10 for Dead and Buried from 1981. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen Dead and Buried, what you think of it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Whatever version you can get. Anybody that has seen it that has the Blu-ray edition, you can let me know if I should replace this, if the Blu-ray is a lot cleaner version, if it's a lot better. Otherwise, I'm holding on to this because this isn't, like I said, this is a very nice release. DVD, I'm okay with it for Blue Underground. But please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series and any of my other great horror content that I have coming out the rest of this year. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. Hope everybody's doing well, but as always, stay scared. Bye.